Good afternoon, everyone. Recently, we've sent out the timetable for Term 4 to everyone, and I've also sent it to all the parents of children on the waiting list. During the enrollment process, many parents have asked me questions about the course structure, how to better support their children, and a range of questions about how to learn thinking skills and maths effectively. Actually, I've covered these questions in some of my previous videos. Today, I'd like to take this opportunity to use this video to share my overall course design philosophy and teaching methods, as well as how parents and we can work together to achieve the best possible training outcomes. I want to make a video to explain these things to everyone. This video might be a bit long, so I'll try to fit everything into one episode. If it doesn't all fit, I'll split it into several episodes and release them separately. For children who are already taking classes here, I strongly recommend that parents take the time to watch this video. If your child hasn't started classes with us yet, I also hope that some of the suggestions mentioned in this video can help everyone achieve better results, so that every child can get the best possible outcome from their training. Alright, enough chit-chat, let's get started. Actually, any learning process, whether it's an entire course or just a specific topic within a course, can really be broken down into 4 stages. The way I've structured my courses is also based around these main stages. First of all, we need to provide children with systematic knowledge and a way of teaching methods, a way of instruction, meaning we need to let them know what types of questions or what kinds of knowledge are involved in this subject, and what knowledge and methods are covered in this particular discipline. At the same time, on top of having the knowledge and methods, we also need to use a teaching approach that suits the child's current stage and what they should be able to grasp. Also, based on these 2 points, if the child can absorb things well in class. Then, when it comes to practice at home, how can they better learn from their own mistakes? To check which parts of the knowledge and skills they've already mastered, which ones they haven't, and to better consolidate what they've learned. In this way, the whole thing forms what we call a complete learning process. So today, the content we are introducing is basically structured around these 4 aspects. Although our entire comprehensive course is specifically designed around the 2 crucial key stages of OC and selective as the primary main focus, I've always consistently said that. What I hope is that through studying this course, not only can I help children improve their exam results, but more importantly, it can truly help them enhance their learning ability, as well as develop a more resilient attitude towards learning when facing setbacks. This is actually something I've been gradually implementing and strengthening throughout the course design. Alright, now let's take a look. The first aspect is knowledge and skills. Well, for this, actually, anything we do needs to start with a clear teaching syllabus. I believe that, whether you're with me or somewhere else, I hope all parents can take a look at it. For the whole course, it needs to have clear boundaries for its knowledge content. Here, I have a particularly important belief. I am strongly against using knowledge as a substitute for ability. That is to say, I know that many training centers, or even parents when teaching their children, tend to go beyond the child's current stage and teach them knowledge that they are only supposed to learn at a later stage. This approach allows children to quickly solve certain problems. But actually, this is something I have always strongly opposed, as it has a very negative impact on children. I plan to do a dedicated episode in the future to discuss this topic in depth. For now, what I want to say is that our current teaching, firstly, this is the syllabus for the mathematics section. So, this second syllabus is extracted from the Australian National Curriculum, specifically for years 4, 5, and 6. That means all of our mathematics training is entirely based on the content outlined in this syllabus. There's no hype or embellishment at all. So, more often, what we hope is to use this knowledge to assess the children's problem-solving abilities, rather than just testing them at the knowledge level alone. It's not about excessive extension, but rather, at the current level of knowledge, it's more about testing the child's problem-solving ability. That's from the mathematics perspective. Now, as for thinking skills, we divide them into the OC and selective stages. So you'll notice that in the OC and spec stages, the types of questions are actually exactly the same. They're completely aligned. The only difference between the OC and selective stages is that you can see the breadth of the topics covered, and, the depth is different. Yeah, the depth is not the same. This is basically the overall syllabus for our CMAS and thinking skills, a sort of outline. Speaking of this outline, actually, there are still some differences, because the math syllabus has there's a referenceable one, meaning I can actually look up where the maths teaching syllabus is. So I can design my training courses based on the syllabus, and according to my own ideas, add in more elements of problem solving. But as for thinking skills, it's a bit different. I mentioned this issue in the previous video about what is thinking skill. The problem with thinking skills is that there isn't a ready-made teaching syllabus for it. So, what do I have on hand? The most authoritative thing I have is the overall syllabus for Cambridge A and AS level. But to be honest, that syllabus contains an enormous amount of content, and that course is it's a high school course that can be spread over 3 years and 6 semesters, basically a high school curriculum before university. In fact, this course has already become very popular in the United States. So, that syllabus isn't really suitable for our OCA selective type of study. So, what have I been doing then? Over these past few years, and actually right up until today, what I've been doing is combining the overall scope of that syllabus, and then using the sample questions as the main reference point. So, I use a process of elimination to pull out the unnecessary content, then highlight the important points, and then categorize them. After categorizing, I explain them to the students. This is the first aspect, how our course is developed, where its syllabus comes from, and how it's designed. How is it designed? This is the first point I want to communicate with everyone. Every course, every semester, has its own particular focus. For example, this is what I mean when I say it's a selective course. So, what is a selective course? At the moment, we've divided the courses into 7 terms, starting from Year 4, Term 2, up to Year 6, Term 1. So, in total, there are 7 terms of courses. Now, with these 7 terms of courses, you'll notice that for each term, we actually have a core program. This part here is a bit small, so you might not be able to see it clearly, but basically, every lesson has a core program, and at the same time, there's also a subprogram. In other words, each term's course is divided into 2 main parts, 2 major sections. And these 2 main parts are essentially an analysis of the key points that we want the kids to focus on during that term. So, this is an analysis of the key points for assessment. Now, some of the content here, you could say, gradually increases in difficulty. As you can see, I've divided the course into 3 stages, 1, 2, and 3. The difficulty of these 3 stages basically increases step by step, gets harder and harder. You could also say that, actually, the most challenging part is definitely in Phase 2. Phase 2. Actually, when you get to Phase 3, it's already quite close to the real exam questions, and the difficulty is about the same as well. So, each semester, we follow this approach, focusing on these 2 main areas for the major exams. I give the kids a detailed explanation. Basically, I categorize things from the perspective of critical thinking and probably probability as well. So, this is how it's structured overall, including the OC stage, we divide it up the same way. That's the first main point. So, it's about focusing on knowledge and skills. From the perspective of course content, this is the kind of design philosophy and teaching approach we use. Speaking of this, I often hear some parents ask me, Mr. John, are you the one teaching this class? Actually, what I want to tell everyone is that if you're willing to send your child here, what you should really trust is our teaching system and framework. Every one of our teachers is actually very dedicated. Our teachers are extremely responsible. For them to be able to stand at this podium, it may not be 1,000 trials, but they've definitely gone through a great deal of training and honing. Only after all that can they finally stand up here and teach. So, every one of our teachers strictly follows our teaching syllabus. So, I ask everyone to trust in the framework of our exam training, the responsibility of each of our teachers, and their professionalism. You need to have confidence in this. That's the first thing. The first aspect is about our knowledge and the methods and techniques we teach. Where do they come from? That's the first point. The second is about some of our teaching methods. As for teaching methods, first of all, in every class, each child will receive a set of class notes. This is something parents need to know, because some parents have asked me, "Teacher, do I need to prepare anything in advance? Do I need to buy any materials in advance?" No, you don't need to. For every class, we provide something specific. For every class, there will be class notes focused on a particular topic or skill. The class notes include key points, in-class exercises, and after-class exercises. These three parts make up the notes. So, this actually becomes each child's homework for every lesson. So before each class, they'll receive a set of materials like this. These materials cover the key points we'll be discussing in that lesson. That's the first set of materials. The second set is that the child will get a home review from the previous week. Our whole approach to education, my entire teaching method, is like this. It's a way where I learn new knowledge while reviewing what I've learned before. I learn something new, and at the same time, I'm revising previous knowledge. That's how we do it. So, what about this home review? Actually, it's from the last lesson. We pick out the questions from the homework where most people made mistakes, the ones where errors were more common, and then before we start this lesson, we go over those questions. We use this as a starting point to help the kids first review what we learned in the previous lesson, and then move on to learning new material. So, in every lesson, we follow this process of reviewing the old before learning the new. At the same time, in every session. We actually do the same thing. During each session, we also follow this approach throughout the lesson. The kids will learn some of the new knowledge that is the main focus for this term. At the same time, in their homework, we will go over the material they've learned before, helping them organize and review it through their assignments, so they get to revise what they've previously covered. And then, at the same time, they also need to learn new content. So, this brings us to the topic of our gene, which is our homework practice. Now, as for homework, you can see that once each child logs into their account, they'll be able to see it. All the homework they've done, including any mistakes they've made, can be seen here. In fact, parents often ask me, how do I know if my child has finished their homework on time? Because finishing homework on time is very important. I often remind every parent in the group, saying whose homework hasn't been completed yet. Actually, it's very simple. Once you log in, you'll see that if your child's button is green, that means the homework that needs to be done hasn't been finished yet. If the button has turned blue, it means they've completed it. On here, you can clearly see the completion rate, their results, how much time is left, and when they finished it. All of this is really obvious at a glance. So, this is actually a really easy way for parents to check whether their child has finished their homework or not. It's just one way, one method. And as I mentioned earlier, the homework for each term is actually divided into new content that needs to be learned, as well as revision of material they've already studied before. Basically, that's how our homework is structured too. You'll notice that there are both new things and reviews of previous material. It's like that. So, for each term's class, I also use this kind of teaching method, moving forward step by step, iteratively progressing. Alright, so next, let's take a look at review the mistake. Actually, a lot of the time, whether it's us as parents or the kids themselves, during the learning process, whether they attend class or not, some kids are quite attentive in class. So, they've learnt what they should, and they've kept up with the teacher. This is all done very well. Then, when they go home, what about the homework? Well, with the teacher's supervision and the parents' encouragement at home, they're able to get it done too. But for many people, that's where it ends. The issue is finished, the content is done. But actually, as we know, that's not really the case. There's actually a pretty important part, which is reviewing mistakes, reviewing the mistakes made. So, every week, after the kids have finished their homework, we actually send an email listing all the questions they got wrong in their homework that week. In this situation, I especially hope that parents can work together with me on this. What is it that I hope you'll do? It's to help your child review these mistakes. When reviewing the mistakes, since you can print out this email for your child, There are a few points I'd like to share with you about the review process. First of all, it's this. You need to go through the notes with your child first, the notes that were discussed in class. That's because each homework assignment is designed to check the application of the methods covered in the notes from the previous lesson. So, we should first review these notes, and after we've finished reviewing, then we look at these incorrect questions. By reviewing the notes, can we spot, oh, because I've already told you what the correct answer is. Right. For example, for this question, your incorrect answer was A, but the correct answer is D. I've already told you what the answer is, so see if you can figure out, by reviewing these notes, why the answer is D and not A. You need to find the reason for that. You need to find the correct way to solve the problem. That's the first point. The second point is about this. Checking is not a replacement. Actually, I know a lot of parents, when explaining things to their kids, tend to just start telling them, this question should be done like this, like this, like this. Honestly, I think that's not a particularly good way to tutor. So, what's a better way? After we've looked at the windows, we should focus more on checking the child's understanding of the matter, their understanding of the question, rather than doing it for them. Since we already know that the notes have taught you how to do it, that's how it should be done. So, for this kind of question, with this sort of analysis, you can give your child a bit of time to let them do it themselves, let them work it out on their own. After they've finished, your role is more about checking their work, because some parents say, Teacher, I don't understand it either, I don't know how to help my child. Actually, it's quite simple. When it comes to thinking skills, or even maths, these questions aren't really the kind that are, how should I put it, extremely difficult. If your child can really take the time to review these problems properly themselves, then they should actually be able to explain the problem clearly to you, if they really understand it. So, as a parent, you can randomly pick some of the questions your child got wrong and ask them to explain those to you. If, after they've explained it, you understand it too, even though you've never seen the question before, if they've explained it and you understand, it proves your child has mastered the review. But if they explain a question and you still don't get it, then explain another and you still don't understand, that suggests your child hasn't fully grasped the review. At this point, ask your child to summarize their review. If there really are things you don't understand, just write them down. Next time in class or during an exam, ask the teacher about them, because quite a few of these questions will actually come up in the homework before our second lesson. But if your child has already looked at it themselves beforehand, then when they're in class, they'll know, oh, this is the question the teacher is talking about, so I need to pay close attention, because I didn't understand this one. So this is something that's really, really important. I want to remind parents to help their children with this, to encourage them to get it done. Because this is also a skill that children must develop as they move on to high school in the future. Many parents have told me, Teacher, can you remind everyone more often? They send out the questions, but honestly, I think that's a really inefficient way to learn. What I want to say is, when children go to high school in the future, they'll have to deal with 6 or 7 subjects each term. In that situation, can you really expect your child to quickly go through loads of practice questions for every single subject? There's just not enough time, right? And besides, that's not really a very good or effective way to learn. Actually, learning from your own mistakes is the most effective method. So I hope that from the very start of Crypto's courses, we can work together to gradually help the kids to develop this kind of good study habit, a proper learning habit. Finally, what I want to say to parents is you really need to be patient with your children. In fact, learning is often a form of companionship for kids, a way of being there with them. There's a lot to say about this, but what I want to emphasize is this. Well, we can't expect that just because we teach our child something today, they'll have mastered it all by tomorrow, or that they'll remember everything. That's just not realistic. So, if we teach them something today and later find they've forgotten it, what we can do is simply explain it to them again. Rest assured, as your child goes through this gradual process, their difficulties or weaknesses will be addressed and strengthened, and they will definitely improve. It's just that we shouldn't have, how should I put it, overly excessive expectations or set the bar unrealistically high for them. Ah, I've explained it to you once. You should know it. How come you've forgotten again today? Actually, This is perfectly normal, especially with courses like this. For different kids, it's really a matter of thinking habits, not simply mastering a single piece of knowledge. What we are really developing here is a habit, and forming this habit actually takes time. It's a process, it really is. So, every one of our kids is doing great, really great. And I also hope that parents, can be more patient with their children during the learning process, give them more time, and allow them to develop at their own pace. If we think about it, our kids at this age are so much more capable than we were at their age. Really, it's just that maybe we are too far removed from the era our kids are growing up in. Sometimes we tend to overestimate our own abilities and fail to see their strengths, fail to notice their shining qualities. Alright, so that's basically the overall process and design I've talked about this year. It also includes how we can better help our children. So, if you think about it, the time when children truly rely on us is really just a few years. Once they get to secondary school, they become more independent mentally, and they start to take their own steps forward. So while we still can, during this period when we are still able to help them, we should try to spend as much time with them as possible and give them more encouragement when they need it. When there's something to be proud of, we should remind them of it. I think this is something every parent should do during the process of guiding their children, helping them develop good study habits as they learn, and at the same time, making sure they have the right mindset. Having the right attitude when facing failure and setbacks is something we should all strive for together. So today, I've shared some of my own examples and approaches from different angles. I hope this will be helpful for parents when supporting their children. Alright, thank you everyone. That's all for today's sharing.